The director filmed a scene of Michael Jackson being stripped and searched by police inside Neverland Ranch. He called it one of the most powerful scenes he's ever shot. That scene was in the finished movie, and then somebody made a phone call, and it was deleted. An entire third act gone. But that's not the only thing they erased. His own sister? Erased? The woman who raised him like a second mother? Erased? The $47 million deal that made him one of the most powerful men in music? Erased. The real story behind the tour that almost bankrupted an NFL franchise? Erased. The movie made $218 million in one weekend and has a 97% audience score. But what they left out might be more important than what they left in, and nobody is talking about it. Until now. Janet Jackson doesn't appear in the film at all. Not once. Not as a child. Not as a teenager. Not as the sister who would go on to become one of the biggest artists of all time in her own right. LaToya Jackson confirmed at the premiere that Janet was asked to be in the movie, and she kindly declined. Rebby Jackson also requested her likeness not be depicted. Randy is absent too. So the movie tells the story of the Jackson family, but 3 of the siblings are missing. That's not a small detail. Janet was part of that household. She grew up in that same environment. She witnessed the same things from their father. She was literally right there during the years the film covers, and she's nowhere to be found. The movie acts like she doesn't exist in this universe. One critic called it one of the most glaring omissions in any music biopic ever made. Diana Ross is also completely absent from the movie. And that's bizarre when you consider how important she was to Michael's early life. Ross was essentially a second mother to him. She helped discover the Jackson 5, or at least Motown marketed it that way, with the group being introduced as Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5. Michael idolized her. He stayed at her home as a child. She was one of the most significant figures in his formative years. In his will, Michael even named Diana Ross as the backup guardian for his children if his mother Catherine couldn't care for them. That's how deep the connection was. And the movie doesn't mention her once. Not a scene, not a line, not even a reference. The Wiz is completely skipped over. In 1978, Michael starred in his first feature film, a soulful reimagining of The Wizard of Oz alongside Diana Ross. It was a huge moment for him, not because the film was a commercial success, it actually underperformed, but because it introduced Michael to Quincy Jones. Jones was the musical supervisor on The Wiz, and when they met on that set, it sparked the most important creative partnership in music history. Quincy went on to produce Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad, the 3 albums that made Michael the biggest artist on the planet. That entire relationship started on the Wiz set, and the movie just jumps straight to Quincy appearing in Michael's life with no explanation of how they actually met. That's a massive gap in the story. Michael's purchase of the Beatles catalog is never addressed. In 1985, Michael Jackson bought the ATV Music Publishing catalog, which contained the rights to over 250 Beatles songs, for $47.5 million. It was one of the most significant business moves in entertainment history. Paul McCartney had actually told Michael about the value of music publishing years earlier, and Michael used that knowledge to outbid McCartney himself when the catalog went up for sale. It destroyed their friendship. McCartney was furious, and that catalog eventually became worth billions. It's the single shrewdest financial decision Michael ever made, and it fundamentally changed how artists think about owning their masters. The movie covers this exact era, the mid-1980s, and doesn't mention it at all. The Victory Tour is shown in the film, but completely sanitized. In real life, the tour was a disaster behind the scenes. Don King was brought in as promoter. Ticket prices were set at $30 per seat, the highest in concert history at the time. But fans couldn't even buy individual tickets. They had to send $120 by money order for a chance to enter a lottery, with no guarantee of where they'd sit, or even if they'd get in. Chuck Sullivan, who took over promoting, put up the New England Patriots franchise as collateral for a $12.5 million loan to back the tour. The financial fallout was so bad that the Sullivan family eventually had to sell the Patriots. Michael held a press conference and donated his personal earnings to charity just to distance himself from the backlash. In the movie, the tour is just a brief scene about Michael not wanting to perform with his brothers. The real story is 10 times messier. The film also glosses over Michael's physical transformation during these years. It shows the 1984 Pepsi incident where his scalp was burned during a commercial shoot, but it doesn't explore what came after. In real life, that accident led to multiple reconstructive surgeries, and the beginning of a dependency on painkillers that would follow him for the rest of his life. The movie touches it and moves on. But that moment was the first domino in a chain that arguably led to everything that happened after the film's timeline ends. The escalating surgeries, the changing appearance, and ultimately, the circumstances surrounding his passing in 2009. Subscribe, because when the sequel gets announced, everything they left out becomes the main event.